continue, here are a few ground rules. Please keep your microphone muted during the session to limit background noise. If you have any questions during the presentation, write them down and we'll have a Q&A segment at the end. Today, we are privileged to hear from Ms. Cherise Smith, a senior special agent at the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency, where she serves as a digital forensic examiner and cybersecurity specialist. She holds a BSc in applied science, as well as both a master's and a postgraduate degree in cybersecurity. She is an Access Data certified examiner with expertise in digital forensics, risk assessments, vulnerability assessments, and incident response. Recognized as a certified trainer by Israel Aerospace Industries, Cherise is committed to continuous professional development and remains dedicated to staying at the forefront of the dynamic cybersecurity landscape. Now I'll turn things over to Ms. Cherise Smith, our speaker for today. Ms. Smith, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you. Let me just share my screen at the same time. All right, presentation, share. All righty. All right, everyone is seeing the presentation and hearing me fine? All right. So let's go. Okay, thank you. So I am Senior Special Agent Sherry Smith. I'm attached to the Cyber Investigations and Risk Management Unit at MOCA. And I want to thank JA CERT for inviting me to speak in this very important forum today. About passwords, which, as our theme says, it's really our first line of defense. So I'm going to just get right into it. Um, for the presentation, I'm going to discuss why passwords matter, how it is that hackers actually get in, why our passwords fail, and then we look at some defense tactics we have out there, our password managers, and some different strategies that we can put in place to sort of strengthen ourselves and our organizations when it comes to password security. So we're going to deep dive into everything. So firstly, why is it that passwords matter? I want us to think of passwords as the digital keys into our lives, basically. From every single thing that we have out there, our social media, our banking accounts, everything online. Nowadays, a lot of organizations or most platforms still use only passwords as our main as our authentication authentication method, only passwords. So we have to ensure that for those platforms, we're keeping them strong. We have a really good online digital hygiene just to protect ourselves and our organizations from basically disasters when it comes to these things failing. And so we have here in our final point, most systems still rely on passwords as just the primary security feature. And it really outlines why having this sort of forum and this sort of discussion with the general public, why it's still important, still relevant to this day. So just to kind of communicate the scale of the problem that we have. Currently, the average person has about 80 or even over 80 online accounts. And you might be thinking, 80 sound kind of enough. I don't think I have that much. But when you really sit down and you think about the emails that you have, your social media accounts, certain sites that you go on to use a service and they require you to create an account and sign in. A lot of sites are doing that now. When you think of your LinkedIn profiles, all of those, by the time you sit down and you start quantifying, you get a really large number. And then the problem with most of us are everybody these days is how much we actually reuse those passwords. So we have a password for our Facebook is the same password on our Twitter, is the same password that some people got in them organization and use the same password they're using for remote access to their organization. So that's really why we have such a huge problem, the amount of accounts that we have online and how much we actually start reusing the credentials for those accounts. And then when we look at data breaches, cybersecurity incidents that has happened, we realize that about 81% of them resulted from weak or reused passwords that were stolen by hackers. So to put everything into perspective, we can see why it's such a large problem to this day. Just having weak reused passwords and why we have to really focus on a topic like this. So let me move on here. And as I said, the really high stakes of passwords as an individual, as an organization, for a person, for an individual, you're looking at possible identity theft, and that can lead to financial loss. Let's say your Instagram account or your credentials for your Instagram account becomes public. Um, and it's that same password that you might be using to log into your banking platform and to other social media platforms. Now, hackers out there know so much about you. They can log in, take out loans, actually steal your money. We've had an issue that's been growing for the past couple of years when it comes to blackmail and extortion of individuals. When your cloud accounts becomes hacked, so your Google Photos that are online, your iCloud accounts, individuals get into those, they get access to your sensitive photos, your personal documents with sensitive information as well, and threaten to release them to people you know, threaten to release them to the public unless you pay them some money. So that's been an escalating problem for the past couple of years for organizations, and we will discuss a few as we go further down into the presentation. We realize that weak passwords can just balloon into something really big, into catastrophes when it comes to cyber incidents. A weak and a reused password can lead to ransomware attacks. And when we say ransomware attacks, we mean the hackers gain access into your system via the weak passwords, and they're able to encrypt your files or lock down your system completely until or unless you pay them a certain money. So of course, that leads to your company losing access to your data. Some of these attackers will threaten to post them online or sell them to your competitors. That can lead to reputational damage, financial damage. You might even have to pay up to regulatory bodies that you should have been in compliance with, if it is that your password standards were very poor or should have been strong. Um, and if we even take it a scale further, we can look at national security being at risk when it comes to weak passwords. An example being in 2020, a few years ago, or was it last year, the Colonial Pipeline attack that happened in the US that led to a national disaster. And we'll discuss it a little bit further down, where there was a shortage of fuel. They even paid some of the ransom that was asked for by the hackers. So there was huge financial loss there. And it led to a national disaster. So it's not just individuals or organizations. We can have national security risks just because of weak passwords. It was a weak password that led to the Colonial Pipeline attack that happened. All right. So, and this basically sums all of that up. One hacked account can lead to others because you're reusing your passwords. So you might have a little fitness app on your phone, and then all of a sudden you see an alert, oh, this app was breached, and you don't really pay it any mind. It's just an app that you use to exercise. But then the password that you use, there's the password you use to log into your VPN at your organization. Then all of a sudden they can access your organization, or you're using a very weak password. Matter of fact, in the US again, an IT-based company, SolarWinds, they had a breach a couple of years ago. Their update system was was compromised. And when the organization sent out updates to their companies where they do IT managed services, the update actually infected other computers or their customers, and it was a supply chain attack. So it went across sectors. And believe it or not, the password that was used to compromise SolarWinds was that intern password. It was just SolarWinds 123, and it led to a disaster. So it's something as simple as that just balloons into a larger attack. I think it was that intern password. It was just SolarWinds in common letters, one word, 123, and that was the password for the account. That led to their update server. So, as I said, the real world impact that we want to look into the domino effect of having weak and reuse passwords. And you'll find a lot of them in recent times in the news. Once you look up some password attacks that might have happened recently, you'll find a lot because it's such a pervasive matter. It's so prevalent. So the first one that we're going to look at is the Change Healthcare breach. And this one again led to a national disaster. So from a compromised credential, I think it was their VPN, this led to a ransomware attack in the US. It was early last year. It was their payment system that was actually compromised. And because of this, the billing system had an outage completely, and it affected pharmacies, it affected hospitals, insurance companies, and they lost over $100 million per day during the downtime. The good thing is the ransomware gang was actually taken down by law enforcement, the people that were responsible for this breach. So there's a positive outcome there. But as I said, just a simple weak password or a password that was exposed online and not changed led to something as huge as this. And this is what the others look like. The Colonial Pipeline breach that I mentioned previously, forced shutdown of the US's largest pipeline, 2021. And again, it was a leaked VPN password. They didn't have any second factor behind their system. And so once they got the password, the attackers were immediately into the system. Um, uh, the group responsible for this was not there were no public arrests made, but the US was able to recover some of the money that was paid for the ransom. Um, let's go on to another one. And these ones now, which might hit a bit closer to home, we had the Yahoo breach, and this was across multiple years. Um, so attackers were able to get emails, usernames, passwords, and such from Yahoo's system because they had like weak storage practices for their passwords, and we'll discuss what that is further down. Um, this happened over 2013, 2012, a few years. In 2017, though, the attackers were taken down, they were arrested by the US. And the impact of this breach was that Yahoo lost they were for sale and their sale price was reduced by $350 million. So it significantly impacted them financially. And then we have a LinkedIn breach, and we also had a Twitter breach that took place. A few of you might have heard of this Twitter breach. This one was really aimed at, or it was a social engineering sort of thing. The attackers exploited human nature per se. Um, this is when the attackers actually spoke to like the IT department at Twitter, spoke to someone who was high up in IT, and they pretended to be no, the attackers pretended to be like the IT, and they were given access to a credential that had a lot of privilege, and they were able to hack really high profile accounts, Elon Musk, Obama, Biden, to promote a Bitcoin scam. So it was for this one, it's actually the Twitter employees that gave access to the attackers because they were manipulated over the phone. Again, it's high accounts that were breached, so the impact was extensive. Bitcoin was stolen, but again, for this one, the attackers were actually caught. They were actually arrested. So, as I said, once you really get into looking into the implications of just having weak passwords or having poor password practices, you'll see that in recent times it's a lot out there, and they might start off simple. As I said, they might start off as your fitness app. Becoming compromised, and then that can lead to significant financial loss or even have an impact on national security. All right. So what we're going to discuss now is how attackers actually do break in. All right. So the tactics that they use to gain access to our passwords. Now, the first one that I want to mention here is brute force attacks and dictionary attacks. So for brute force and dictionary attacks is where hackers they have access to automated tools that can try thousands of passwords per second. Actually, for brute force is just a random list of guesses, and they will try those on a system and just try to get in. For dictionary attacks now is, as it says, is dictionary. Sometimes it's a pre-compiled list that they have. Sometimes it's actual like listing the dictionary words that they'll try on a system to get in. Now, let's say you had strong password practices and you had a 16 character password, you had numbers, you had symbols, you had uppercase, lowercase, all of that. For brute force or dictionary attacks, the chances are they might not actually be successful with this sort of tool. It might take decades or millions of years. Um, versus you having a password like admin1234 or just 1234 or SolarWinds123. In seconds, they can gain access into your system. And we have a table further down that showed how the complexity of your password, the time it takes for them to actually get it or get into it. Another one is credential stuffing. Now, when we say credential stuffing, what attackers do, because they're monitoring everything online as well. So when let's say a breach happens and your username and your password is leaked. So your fitness app send you an email that we've been the subject of a compromise and your credentials were leaked. Please change your password. But we don't really pay any attention to the email and we say we just leave it alone. We don't go change anything. Attackers now have your username and your password for that app. You were using that password to log into your Twitter, to log into your Instagram. You also used it to log into your VPN at work. Attackers will use that combination of username and password, and they use them automated tools and they try whatever platform they can to see if that combination of credentials can work. So both the username and the password. So it's not really, we have a note here that says it's not about if your credentials are in the breach. The issue is where else are you using those same credentials? And that's how the attack causes the domino effect. That's how it can balloon from a credential stuffing attack. No. Another one are those phishing emails, or when we get those smishing ones, the one in SMS messages that might have fake logins. So and we've been hearing about these in the news a lot these days, the phishing and fake logins. So an attacker sends you an email, oh, you've been locked out of your Microsoft account, click this link and log back in to confirm, or confirm that it's you and there's nothing wrong and stuff like that. Or you get an email that say, there was an issue on your banking platform and you need to log in and do something to check it, and they send you a link. You click the link, it goes to a web page that looks like the actual legitimate web page, and you put in your credentials. On the back end, it's not the actual service that you think you're going into. The back end, the attackers have now gotten your credentials. So the phishing and the fake logins they're one of the easiest attacks that the attackers use, the hackers use, and the most successful as well, because it's human nature that it exploits. It's human trust. So you get a text message, you quickly jump in. Oh my God, something happened to my online account. I need to log in and see what this transaction was or see what happened. And all of a sudden, you've given your credentials to the attacker, a credential that you might have been using elsewhere, a credential that they know used to log into your online account. Um, Another way that they get those passwords are through keyloggers and malware, and this one is a little bit more sophisticated. So keyloggers or malware are malicious pieces of software. And how they get on our computers, maybe from the phishing email, there was something in there we clicked and it downloaded, and now we have malware running in the background where every time you go log into a site, every time you log into your machine, it's capturing your keystrokes, it's capturing what you're typing on your keyboard, packaging that and sending it to the attackers. So now they know exactly what you're writing on your machine and they've captured your keyboard, your keystrokes, captured your passwords. That's another way that the hackers actually break in. Another way is with the use of rainbow tables. And when we speak of rainbow tables, we have to speak of hash values. So what websites do is, so we're going to log into our email and we put in our email address and we put in our password. Google doesn't actually store that password as your plain password, as your admin 12345 6 or anything. They will use a mathematical algorithm to transform that password into like a string of letters and numbers of a certain length depending on the algorithm. So when breaches happen and passwords become public, or those hashes become public, attackers will run them against their rainbow table. So they'll have hashes and what that translates to in plain text, what we can actually read. So then when breaches happen, and let's say you see your email in a breach, but then the password is this long string of letters and numbers, and you might be thinking everything is fine. But the attackers have them databases of those strings of letters and numbers that they can convert into what the actual that they can determine what the actual plain text was. So that's how rainbow tables are actually a way that hackers use to get into our passwords. So if you look at the bold sentence at the bottom here, we have like a password that you might have used, which was 12345 6, using a mathematical algorithm. Here it's SHA-1. There are a lot out there. This is what your password will look like in that database, the 7C48, that long string. Um, Attackers will have those ready for when breaches happen. They can do their comparison and see what sort of passwords they can gain from the hashes that were exposed. And even though we just have 12345 6 here written down, simply, believe it or not, that is still one of the most common passwords out there. For years now, when breach data is analyzed, compromise is analyzed, that 12345 6 is still up there on the list of the most common password in the world. So people are still practicing bad habits like this to this day. So those are the methods that hackers use to break in, from trying to brute force or weak passwords, from trying to do credential stuffing, from the ones that were compromised already, from using rainbow tables, actually using phishing emails or the smishing messages, and using malware and keyloggers to capture what it is that we're typing onto websites or onto our machines. Now, why it is that passwords do fail, and we kind of touch on this when we talk about the weak passwords and if they're not being stored properly. So, the first one that I mentioned before was just the weakness of passwords that we're still using to this day. I mean, I think this list was from a 2023 list of the most 50 most used passwords. Number one is still 1234566. Number two, still password. Number four is just the QWERTY. On the top of your keyboard, if you're on a machine and you look the QWERTY, it's just the easy passwords that people just quickly smash when they're required to create a password. And to this day, these are still the most common passwords out there. So this is just reason number one why passwords fail. We're creating very weak passwords and we're reusing them. Um, this is the table that I wanted to mention. The time it takes for an attacker to guess your password, to brute force onto a system. And so for example, you're using 1, 2, 3, 4. Instantly, attackers brute forcing a good brute forcing tool can get that instantly. And keep in mind that this list here is with computer resources that we have now. When we speak of like quantum computing and leveraging AI and stuff, all of these values become less. It's not going to take 700,000 years to guess a lowercase letter password that might have 14 characters. So we have to be mindful. We have to just be careful and start practicing good password techniques so that we're not subject to these sort of attacks that hackers use, automated attacks that hackers use. So just to sort of reiterate everything, our passwords are failing because we have weak password habits. So we're using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're using password. We're using QWERTY. We're using birthdays and names of our pets and our family members. Those are the first ones. If you're a target of an attack, those are the first passwords that an attacker will try to use. So we have to cut that out completely. We are using our passwords, and that's how we become victim to credential stuffing. Or Twitter, or LinkedIn, or Instagram, or Facebook, same password, same login. So once one of them get breached, no, all of them are subject or are possible subjects of other breaches because our password is out there. We have poor storage practices as well. We're writing down our passwords on sticky notes and then we're taking a selfie and the sticky note in the background and we post it online. Or we're sharing those passwords via emails. You don't know if the person you sending it to email was previously compromised, and now you're basically sending your password as well, to somewhere where hackers have visibility. I think there's another one. Sorry. Another reason is the social engineering that takes place. A lot of times, in cybersecurity, we always say, or we have this saying that humans are often the weakest link when it comes to cybersecurity. And we might say, oh, that can't really happen to me, but it happens. We get those emails and your heart race, you see $100,000 transaction on your account and you need to log in immediately to see what happened. And it's a phishing email and no, the attackers actually have your banking credentials. Look at the Twitter guys that actually gave up an admin tool, a password over the phone. So we have to get out of the practice of saying that can't happen to me. I will know when this message is fake or this email is fake, or I'll know who I'm speaking to. It happens. And then another issue that we have is the delayed revocation of old accounts. So in a corporate setting, somebody leaves, or somebody is fired, they quit a month ago, their account is still active, and it's a way that attackers can get in. Even those accounts that you're not even monitoring online, you signed up for Canva to create some infographic 2 years ago. You use your Facebook password when you're making it, and you're not really paying attention to Canva anymore. You use it one time and you forget about it. Canva gets breached, and now all of a sudden the password that you've been using elsewhere gets breached as well because you're not really paying attention to that anymore. And so those are really the main reasons that our passwords out there fail. Now, what we want to get into are defense tactics, what we can do as individuals, as organizations, as government agencies, what we can do to actually try to mitigate the impact of failing passwords or not have passwords fail. So one of the first things that we can look at are password managers. And basically these are software applications out there. They'll securely store your password. They manage the username, they manage the passwords for various websites, various applications. And all you have to remember is your master password for that manager, right? So the manager itself, it will store unique, complex passwords for every account. It keeps that encrypted. It will autofill it onto websites. So say for example, you got an email that your bank account was compromised and you should click the link to go to the bank account and fill in the password. You have a good password manager or some of them. If it's a legitimate website, it will autofill the details for you. If it's a fake website, it won't, and it might prompt you that this site does not reflect or it's not the correct website. So a password manager can help you in that way. And some of the popular ones out there or NordPass, RoboForm, OnePass, Keeper. The one that I have in the center here, Bitwarden, is a free one that we can use. And depending on the device, you have Androids and iPhones, iOS devices. They come with them password manager as well these days. So we can use the tools that we have. It might be free. We can use the ones on our phone, or if we want more, we can go and purchase an application to use to manage our passwords for us and our usernames. No, the do's and don'ts of using a password manager is really ensure that your password, the master password that you have, it is 16 or more characters long. Use your uppercase, use your lowercase, use your symbols, your numbers. Make it a memorable passphrase. Don't make it a dictionary word. Don't make it be the name of your mother and her birth year. So, and the example here is purple turtle with a dollar sign, bakes 42 exclamation. That's a strong one for your master password for your password manager. Don't reuse from other accounts. Do not write it down. And that's why we say make it memorable and don't store it digitally unencrypted. So if you're going to store it in a note, lock it. Do not email it. It's just something that you have to keep to yourself. Now, a few more defense tactics that we can look into is using multi-factor authentication. So if we sign up for a service or we're using some sort of application that has the capability of enabling multi-factor authentication, we should. And when we speak of multi-factor authentication, what we're saying is when you log in, you enter your password, it requires a second factor for you to get into a system. And that can either be your biometrics, that can either be your geolocation. You can only log in at this specific place. It can be a code that you know or a token, but a second method for you to get into that system. What you can do, run password audits, and this works for individuals and corporate environments as well. So you make sure that you're checking if this account was the subject of any compromise, what needs to be changed. You're monitoring your passwords. And I have some links at the end of where we can go online and check if like, for example, your email was involved in any breach. And we mentioned this before. Never ever share your password via email or via any sort of unencrypted chat. Matter of fact, if you're using a good password manager and you need to share password for any reason, a lot of them have their own channel that you can use to do that rather than writing your password in an email and sending it. And of course, update your critical passwords frequently. So the passwords you're using to log into your VPN to log into your corporate environment, change it frequently. The password you're using for your online banking, change it frequently as well. Wherever it is that there's a critical service, using your strong passwords and you are ensuring that you're changing them on a frequent basis. Because if it is that they were compromised, at least then you know that this password was changed. The one that was leaked in that breach a week ago is not the one that I currently have. And of course, as we mentioned before, enforce manager, a password manager adoption, enforce the tool. Enforce password policies like in a corporate environment. You're pushing out policies that forces your staff to change them password every 3 weeks. The password has to be this complex. It has to be at least 16 characters long, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, characters. In our organizations as well, we can push out policies. We can disable browser saving. So, you log in, you sign up for something online and it asks you, do you want to save this password? Never save this password. You can disable that completely. And for organizations as well, you recommend simulating phishing attacks. So you want to push out phishing attacks onto your staff and see if it is that training is required, sensitization is required, how it is that they're responding to these simulated phishing attacks. Are they actually clicking those links, giving up info? Or are they notifying IT or the cybersecurity staff that, hey, I got this email and something looks suspicious? And you can take it from there, how it is that you go about training your staff. So these are some tactics that we can definitely put in place to counteract the effects of failing passwords or just having weak passwords out there. And so I have some tips here just for when we're creating our passwords. And nowadays with the computing power that's out there, we really need strong, long passwords. So use passphrases and in them use symbols. So here we have it look really long, but if you're using a good password manager tool, then you only need to remember the master password. So use a passphrase that can't be brute forced in minutes. Go for 16 or more characters. Don't use personal information. So don't use your birthday, don't use your name, your pets, your family's name, all of that. And try to be unique. Do not reuse those passwords for every account. Make it random. And so these are the resources that I spoke of earlier. The first one, Have I Been Pwned? You guys can go ahead, search that up, put in your email addresses and see if they were subject to any breach. It might be a service that you haven't used in like 10 years, but you did sign up for. It might be a service that you're using now and they got breached yesterday. So go ahead and check your email addresses on that platform to see if they have been breached anywhere and you need to change your credentials. The second one is that free password manager tool that you can install on your devices to manage your passwords for you. And then the third one is a NIST standard of safe password practices. So how we can create safe passwords and what they similar to the tips that I shared in the previous slide. And if anyone from this platform want to reach out to me, I also have my email address in this section here. So it's sharice.smith@mocha.gov .jm. So basically to summarize all of what I said in the past couple of minutes, install your password manager, and there are free ones out there, or you might have some on your phone, use them. Um, Replace those weak passwords that you have. So if any of you in here guilty of the 1 2 3 4 5 6 or the QWERTY, or you're following the QAZWSZ on your keyboard, please go change them immediately. If you're using a service that gives you the option to turn on multi-factor authentication, go ahead and go turn them on. No, and just go through, audit your accounts, make sure you're not using the same passwords for all of your social media sites, and that's the same password you're using to log into your VPN for your work. And that's it for my presentation, and we will move into the question and answer section.
Thank you so much, Miss Smith, for the insightful presentation. I'm sure everyone now understands why our passwords are our first line of defense. So we're gonna go into the Q&A session now. We're not gonna open the floor. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can type it in the chat.
Well, I see one here that was asking about password managers. I think we covered that, where they're a good thing to use. Just
Okay, somebody
manage.
asking to put back the slide with the password managers,
Let me
please.
go back.
So I guess you could maybe expound more on
Oh,
password managers. It seems to be.
sure. So, they're basically one application that will securely store your username and your passwords for the websites and apps that you're using on your device. And they will generate passwords for you, safe, strong passwords. So you're signing up for something online, you don't need to sit down and now be thinking of like a passphrase and I need to make it 16 characters and I need to do the uppercase, lowercase. Your password manager will do that for you, store it securely. So all you need to remember is that one master password to get into the password manager. Instead of remembering password for your 80 accounts that you have out there, you just need to remember that one master one to get into your app. And so these are some popular ones out there. And as I said, the one in the middle, Bitwarden, is a free one. And again, on some of our phones, they come with password managers now.
Okay, great. Someone's asking how they can get the presentation.
So I'll coordinate
Share the
with
slide.
you, JA, sir, to see how you will be able to disseminate that. But I can definitely share that with you guys to get out there.
Okay, thank you. So does anybody have any other questions? Um, okay, I see a hand. You can unmute.
Hi, afternoon. Thank you, Miss Charisse, or should I say Special Agent Smith,
Thank you, Colonel. Good
for,
afternoon.
for quite an engaging presentation. Not really a question, but maybe you can sort of add some clarity to your audience with respect to the use of biometrics as part of your password arsenal or
Mhm.
your authentication arsenal, as well as just add some clarity between tokens and keys and actual hashes when it comes to passwords.
Sure. So I had mentioned earlier that um, where you're using a service, an application, or a website that has the option for you to enable what we call multi-factor authentication, go ahead. What this does is, in addition to having your password, that passphrase, a safe one, in addition to having that, when you're logging in, you're prompted to enter a second form of authentication. So you're verifying that you are who you say you are. When it comes to biometrics, you can use your fingerprint, use your facial recognition. When it comes to tokens, many of us are familiar with the ones from the banks, those the hard tokens or the software that we can install on our phone. There are different apps. Google has one, Google Authenticator, that you can use for different apps. So for example, our emails, I'm not sure no, but previously the using multi-factor authentication did not come default on. So it's something that you had to turn on yourself. So go in the settings, look if it says require MFA, and that's your multi-factor authentication. So when you're logging in, you put the password, but it requires something else to verify who you are before it takes you onto the platform. So your fingerprint or your face for your biometrics, or you have a token from a software that you're using, your Google Authenticator, or you actually have a hardware token that has some digits. Most of them are six numbers that changes in a very short space of time, like 30 seconds. So you have that. They can verify that you have that token that's changing and you have access to the current token at this particular point in time. So I'm going to give you access to the system, or I verified that that face is yours. So I'm going to give you access to the system. I hope that answers that question.
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so is there any more questions?
Sure. Since nobody else is asking questions, I'll ask the questions. Ms. Smith, two of the most vulnerable groups in our society are the young and the elderly. As we look to improve our ability to secure our digital identities and to combat online scams, what additional words do you have for the very young in our society and the very old, and probably the caregivers that have to take care of these people?
Right, because I'm happy you mentioned the caregivers because they are who. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Oh, because they're who I would charge with actually helping those in their lives. So folks like us, we have to watch our parents, watch our kids, what they're doing, and ensuring that we're instilling in them the safe password practices that we may be exposed to in these forums. I'd actually charge us to actually go into the schools and educate the younger generation because they're online more than most of us. So we need to go to their level and get them up to par with what it means to be safe online and to have safe password practices. But for the older generation, I'd charge the caregivers, charge us in actually helping them to get to an adequate level when it comes to safety online.
Do we still have more time, Madam Moderator?
I think we can wrap up now.
Okay. Before we
Nobody
wrap, I
else.
have one final thing for you.
Okay, sure.
WhatsApp groups, particularly for church groups and other community groups, and the takeover of these groups by persons who infiltrate them. What advice would you give to the admins in these groups, and how would you help them? How can we help them to help the members of these groups not to fall prey to some of these scams?
Mm. And I'm noticing that those are becoming prevalent right now. It's really just the security, leveraging the security features that comes with the app itself, ensuring that only the admin can add people to those groups, limiting actually share or having open joining with those links. So it's just limiting who can actually admit people into those groups that will prevent or mitigate or lessen these sort of things happening nowadays. Just leveraging the security feature of the actual application itself. And of course, sensitization, just educating people on what's happening and what they need to do.
Thank you. That's it from me.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. So thanks again, Cherise, for a really good presentation. I'm sure everyone learned a lot. As we wrap up, I want to thank each of you guys for taking the time out to be here today. I hope that the session did not just spark awareness, but action, because protecting our systems and identities start with small, consistent steps like stronger passwords. So on behalf of Just Earth, happy World Password Day, and thanks again for coming. Bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.